Absolutely. So just behind the scenes, we just redid this. So this is going to sound kind of funny, but we've got Chris and Shelley Cooley with us today, part of a huge real estate team in the Houston market, but doing huge things independent and on their own of that. Just wanted to really get some nuggets of information and let their story feed into what you're looking through, what you're going through, and what you're trying to feed into your entrepreneurial journey. So Chris, Shelley, how y'all doing today?
We're doing great, guys. Happy Friday the 13th to you.
Excellent. So I guess let's start off. What we like to do is kind of just a 2-minute Genesis story. You know, I find that the majority of people that come into real estate weren't like running around pretending they were a realtor when they were 12 years old, right? I mean, it wasn't something that was this preconceived long-term notion. So how did you guys get started in real estate?
I'll let Shelley start because I'm a gentleman.
Thank you. So my story is a little different than I guess most people's. I was an educator for 15 years, and a mutual friend connected me with Jimmy Franklin as a home stager. And so back in 2009, so that's kind of how I tiptoed into real estate. I staged homes for quite some time. And then in 2013, left education and joined the Franklin team as a business development person while I still did the staging. And then, did that for about 3.5 years. And while I was doing the staging, and finally in 2016, decided to get my real estate license and continue on the team as a realtor. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we've got fairly similar stories in that we both got into real estate later in life. But I spent the first 35 years of my career in technology sales. So working for big corporations and traveling constantly. And, it got, after a while, it's not as glamorous as people would think. And I just got burned out doing that. And so I really wanted to find an opportunity to really get to know the city that I lived in. I was never in the city that I lived in. I was always somewhere else. So this was a great opportunity to do that. I actually started out in commercial real estate when I first started for about 8 months and realized pretty quickly that was going to be a while before I could really make any kind of money there. So I was talking to Jimmy Franklin, who you guys know very well. And he kept egging me on saying, "What are you doing over there? You need to come over to the residential side. The sales cycle's a lot quicker. We have a lot more fun." And so he worked on me for a while. I finally called him up and said, "All right, buddy, you got me." So we've been doing this now for how long?
Well, as licensed agents, 6 years.
Yeah. So never looked back. We absolutely, it really did meet a lot of my the needs that I had from just a life standpoint, and being able to do something that I really enjoyed doing, make some pretty good money at it, and also really get to know the city that I lived in, and love Houston. I keep getting pulled back. I've lived in a lot of different places in my life. I graduated from University of Houston, but then I ended up going to Mexico City for a couple of years with Compact Computer a long time ago, and came back to Houston, went to Dallas, came back to Houston, went to Austin, came back to Houston. So Houston keeps sucking me back in. So I just figured, why not just stay here? I mean, there's a reason why I keep ending up back here.
Got that boomerang effect. So
yes, absolutely.
I was looking over, I'm doing my due diligence and was going through y'all's website and everything this morning. And I noticed that the very first line in y'all's statement piece on your website is that your goal is to make the process of buying or selling properties stress-free and enjoyable, and I think that kind of goes across multiple parallels. In real estate, it's very, very poignant because quite honestly, a lot of people are just scared of buying a house. Everybody wants one, but they, between the banks and appraisals and the horror stories and everything that they see, how do y'all do that on a day-to-day basis and really just keep that at the core of your business?
I'll start. Is that okay?
Sure. Yeah.
I think for me personally, I think it's all about communication, right? And I set that expectation from the time that I'm meeting with the either buyers or the sellers and let them know that, this is what the process is going to look like. I front load them a lot at the beginning. That's probably the teacher in me. And I tell them, hey, I know I'm giving you a lot of information right now. It might sound overwhelming, but I just want to let you know how the process is going to go. And then as we go through the process, I'm going to be keeping you posted on each step as we're going through each step. And I think it's just reassuring them, letting them know that, hey, I know what I'm doing here. I do this every single day. And that's my job, to make sure that you feel like this is a seamless process and stress-free. And it really can't be stress-free. And, I mean, you can try to minimize the stress, of course, but it also goes back to the client's personality too. I mean, I've had some nervous Nellies along the way, but I think I do well with them because I just continue to reassure them. So
I think it comes down to trust, right? You got to, and like Shelley said, you get out in front of the issues, and you let people know, give them that expectation that, it's probably not going to go exactly like this. There might be some hiccups along the way, but we're going to handle those with you. We're in this together, kind of a mentality. And I think that really goes a long way toward getting people to trust the process, and the results speak for themselves.
I find in my real estate business that and this is more of an internal moniker, I wouldn't necessarily say this to a client, but is the problem that they're facing right now going to still stick out in their mind 6 months after they've closed on the house? Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. But, because there are those transactions where they're just always going to remember that thing that happened. But most of it it's just a lack of communication. It's a lack of understanding. It's a lack of pre-framing them on, hey, listen, there's going to be a couple of times, the lender is going to ask you for something that you feel you've already done, or, they're going to something's going to get delayed. The processor went into labor and your loan didn't get worked on that day. I mean, there is the human element to what we do, but I think you're exactly right. I think communication is absolutely key. So I think that would segue, and I'm going to ask a selfish question. Communication kind of leads me into that. So, y'all have worked together. I have been working with my wife. We've been married 27 years, and we've worked together in our own businesses 40 hours a week since 2003. And that's hard, and I give all the credit to my wife. I mean, because I am not a saint, and she obviously is. So how do y'all handle that? How do you manage that and the work-life balance? And I mean, do you turn it off at the door at 5 o'clock, or are y'all watching TV and one of y'all looks at each other at 9:30 and goes, hey, what about this? I mean, how do y'all do that?
Yeah, it doesn't stop. So let me jump back just a little bit. When Shelley and I got married, we were doing two totally different things from an occupation standpoint. Shelley was a teacher. She was in education, so she was doing a lot of assisted technology for the school system, something completely foreign to me and my background. I was a technology sales guy, and I was doing all kinds of different things. And people would ask Shelley. It was easy for me because when people would ask me what Shelley did, I could tell them exactly what she did to a point. I didn't know exactly from when she got into the assistive technology. But when people would ask her what I did, she would say, I'm not really sure. He sells technology. That's all I really know. And he travels a lot. So she mentioned one time, she heard me on a conference call. And she said, after the conference call, she said, I didn't understand anything that you guys were talking about. I didn't understand the language at all. And now that's a real positive thing about working together, is that we're both focused on the same thing. We're both learning together. Every single day we learn something. And if you're not learning something every day in this industry, then you're doing something wrong, or you're not getting out there in activity. But now we do speak the same language. And now when Shelley has an issue, she can bounce it off me and vice versa. And I really, really enjoy that about working together. And now I'll let Shelley tell you that's the shiny side of the penny. Now let's flip it over and let's look at the dingy side of the penny for a second.
Yeah, the dingy side would be that it never stops. Like, it's 24/7. And we really have to sometimes put a boundary in place and go, okay, enough. We can't talk about real estate for the rest of the evening.
So let me just talk about our kids.
Right? Yeah, no, we don't even maybe our dogs. I don't know. But yeah, it's tough. That's a challenge sometimes. And Chris will tell you, I kind of eat, breathe, and sleep real estate. Like, I love it and I could never have too much of it. And I would talk about it all the time if he would let me, but he's the one that usually has to put his foot down and says, okay, I'm done, enough. And we have to like turn on the TV and just, preoccupy our minds with something else.
It's funny. I only have one rule when it comes to business, and that is my wife for a while had this innate ability to, like, at 10:38, like literally I laid my head on my pillow. She goes, hey, did you cut that check? And I was like, you cannot talk to me about money. I'm going to sleep, because my brain doesn't stop, and I like, it goes over, and I'm like, I'm going to be up for 3 hours now. You can't do that. So that was like my line. But when I talk with my agents, because we have a team of so we have a team of 14 agents, and I tell everybody I'm available 7A to 7P 7 days a week, to my team. But I mean, and my wife is really, really cool about it. But she's sitting there next to me, and if the phone rings at 7:10, she's just like, are you picking that up? You paid your 12 hours, it'll be there in the morning, so
don't break your own rule. Yeah. And it's hard because, it would be nice to be able to put in, steadfast rules from, as far as timing goes. But Shelley, she was in her office last night, late night, working on something. But
Transactions.
It happens. I mean, and you can't, as far as the way we work it is, it really does. I understand when Shelley has to, go outside of that, 7 to 7 time frame, or, whatever it is. There's very often, and she understands when I have to do it as well. And I that's so important, because if we were actually having dinner last night with a couple of realtors that they're here local, and they're a husband and wife team as well. And we kind of had this same conversation. And, one of the things that happened at some point in time, one of their phones rang, and they had to take that call in the middle of dinner. And, and we had that conversation about how, if we weren't working in the same industry and we didn't understand that, then it might be something that, we would look negatively upon. But,
sure,
you get it. The phone rings, and sometimes you can ignore it, but a lot of times you got to answer that call. So, we understand that about each of our businesses, and it really does help to keep us aligned.
So, obviously I do my research beforehand, and I look at all this stuff, and I know that y'all are very, very focused on bringing value to your clients, value to your partners, value to anyone that works in, on, or around your team. How important is that to you, and how do you keep that at the forefront of the day-to-day? I've got to get this sold. I've got to get this appraisal. I mean, there's so many moving pieces all the time. How do you keep that important?
Well, I think part of it is that it's our income, right? So obviously that's going to take center stage. It's easier for us because we're basically empty nesters. If we had a bunch of little rugrats running around and and making lunches every day for school, and that would be a different program. We would have to prioritize that. That's not the case for us right now in this time of our lives. So it really does help that we understand that the business comes first and our clients come first, and but it is important to carve out some time for ourselves, and we are capable of doing that. But I don't know, Shelley.
I think as far as from a values standpoint, I think that, that's probably what fuels me the most. I mean, I love, serving clients, of course, but serving those other agents that we're working around. If somebody needs something, if they have a question or they want to bounce something off of us, I mean, that's something that I get excited about, being able to help others, and not that I have a ton of experience in the industry, but I think I've done quite a few. I've done a lot for the 6 years that I've been in the business. And I think, with that comes experience. And so I'm all about helping others. And I think that, that's kind of my teaching background too, right? Serving. Yep. And so that's a part of the job that really fuels me. And I mean, it's serving everybody. It's serving the clients, it's serving, the agents that you're working with, that you're, helping to mentor and grow. So Yeah. It's
Well, and
just part of
they
it.
talk about that in churches all the time. I mean, at least in church, I go, that serving mindset, the servant mindset. What can I do? How can I make whatever the situation is, whether it's good, bad, or whatever? How can I make it better? If it's good, I want to make it great. If it's great, I want to make it fantastic. And I think you're exactly right. And I would compliment you. I would have to say that. I mean, we're all an amalgamation of our past lives, right? Technology, sales, teaching, all that stuff. And I bring all of that. I was very fortunate when I came into this business. I had been selling stuff for 30 years, and I literally had an aha moment. I was like, I need to go sell something that has more zeros. Right. I mean, so I was able to, my midlife crisis was not a Porsche. It was changing careers at 40 years old and going into real estate. That was my one. So I know, Jack, you had a specific question that you wanted to ask them about kind of the day-to-day motivation.
Well, day-to-day motivation, I kind of just wanted to touch on what y'all's driving points are in your business and how they've changed since you started.
Well, he gave me a more specific question. When you get to the point where you're no longer trying to keep the lights on, right? And you've got some money in the bank, you've got a nice house, and you're doing good. How do you roll out of bed every morning super motivated?
I am very much a routine person, right? The structure in my day is super important. So for me, coffee helps me roll out of bed. I'm not joking. But I spend the first hour and a half to 2 hours. It's my time. It's quiet time. I get up extra early to be able to afford myself the luxury of being able to do that. When I was a teacher, I did not have that. I mean, I could have gotten up extra early, but as a teacher, you start your job. I had to be in my classroom by 7:30. So that didn't work for me back then. Now I spend a lot of time in the mornings. I have my routine. Meditation, spiritual time, journaling, listening to something educational. And exercise. Those are all while I'm doing coffee until the exercise part, of course. But that's a daily routine for me. And I was telling Chris this last night. In fact, that keeps me centered. It keeps me focused. And if I don't do that in the mornings, my day is off. So I feel like that's how I keep my energy up. And also, I try to make sure I'm surrounded by people with a high vibration, right? I'm very selective about who I spend time with. And I think it's important that we're hanging out with those people that are a positive influence, on our just giving to us and feeding our souls as much as we're trying to do that to them. I don't like to be around time suckers or people that suck my energy. So for me personally, I think it's all about how I start my day, and I'm very selective with how I spend my time.
That's a great answer. All right, you're up, Chris. You have as good an answer?
I don't know if I can top that. That's pretty good. Well, I think that one of the things that really drives me is the opportunity to do so many different things at our current broker, EXP. Our previous broker, it was all about selling houses, buying houses. That was what it was all about. And that was really it. The only way to drive any kind of an income. But there are so many opportunities at EXP to get into activity in different ways and drive revenue in different ways that if one piece of it is, one day I'm thinking, well, I don't really feel like doing this today. And I don't really see that as being critical to our success today. I've got something else over here that I can pour all of my time and energy into that will drive revenue for us more immediately. So I think the number of different things that we can do to go out and get into activity, one day is very different from the next in this industry, and definitely where we are right now. So it keeps things very interesting. There's always something new going on. And that's always something. It never gets boring, for sure.
Well, first of all, I'd like to compliment y'all again, because I think that a lot of the answers that you're giving are really, again, they're parallel. I think that anybody can take this, because I know that in any entrepreneurial journey, you have to constantly be looking for growth. I tell my agents all the time, there is no sitting still. You're going forwards or you're going backwards. There is complacency is the death nail of any entrepreneurial life, because you're not getting paid by the hour, right? Any hour I'm not.
I said, if you're not growing, you're dying.
That's exactly right.
Rolling that stone up that hill.
Yeah, you're rolling the stone up the hill. So I guess my next question would be, and again, we had talked a little bit before the podcast about the fact that I really love to bridge the gap between people like yourself and the brand new agent or the brand new entrepreneur, or somebody that just opened a coffee shop, or somebody that's got a great new idea and they want to get out there. What time in your business journey I'm assuming you've had moments when you had this great plan and it just didn't go right, or it just didn't land the way you wanted it to land. How do y'all deal with that type of adversity?
Gosh, that's tough.
Well, I think, it's so important to have a plan, first of all, and also to be able to realize that plan is never going to go the way that you think it's going to go when you put the plan together. So you have to be flexible enough to know that, okay, this is our end goal that we're going after. And, how we get there, this is one way that we're going to do it. But, so you have to be able to pivot and understand while keeping that ultimate goal in mind. So I don't think that I've ever set a goal before and got there the way I thought I was going to get there when I made that goal. But you just have to be flexible, and you have to, stay the course, and just a lot of focus and hard work, especially in the beginning, because you're not only trying to, eke out a living, but you're also trying to grow something, and that takes a lot of work in the beginning. Now that doesn't slow down. I mean, we're continuing to to pour everything that we've got into this. Where are we going to want to do that in 20 years from now? Probably not. We're looking for an exit strategy always, and everybody needs to have one. But
Sure.
If you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to build something, you have a dream, and you see in your mind's eye what you're going after. That if that doesn't, the old coach is saying, if that doesn't fire you up, then your wood is wet. So if you're not pumped about what you're trying to accomplish, then you probably ought to think about trying to go after something else.
I personally, for newer people, I would say, I remember, because like you, Jason, I didn't get my real estate license until I was 44. So I just told my age. But I think for me personally, whether it's teaching, whether it's, I don't know, doing an office job or working as a real estate agent, I am a hustler, and I hustle. It's just I always tell my parents they had itchy feet. They never sat still. And I, learned from them. And I really do believe that anything that you are doing, it takes time, it takes hard work, determination, a lot of grit, right? A lot of just drive, and it's doing it day in and day out. And I remember when I did move over to real estate and became an agent, I, said, gosh, I'm working so much and so long, so many hours and so hard. But I reminded myself that, anything worth having, of course, is worth working hard for, but also it takes time. And if I had just been fresh out of college and just starting my career, I would be working hard, just like I was as, changing careers, right? Even though I was older, I still had to work just as hard. But I realized that's in my nature. That's not going to change. I don't see myself ever retiring. Really. I mean, I'm always going to be working. I enjoy work. That's what keeps me going. So as far as newer people coming into the agent and the industry, I think, it's really, you're going to get out of this what you put into it. So, if you're staying complacent, like you said, or just not really giving it your all, I mean, you can't expect to accomplish a lot. I know a lot of agents get into this, or people get into the industry thinking that it's going to be easy, and it's not. It's not.
Yeah.
You have to hustle. You have to work hard. You have to align yourself with people that you can learn from, that will mentor you. And that's another thing great about, our brokerage. I mean, we're aligned with some really, really, really intelligent people who are willing to share,
Like
to
yourself.
mentor and teach. And so it's about being in the right rooms and, pouring yourself in to whatever is being offered. And we have a lot of things that are offered with EXP and our, our upline. And so you'll find me, I'm usually participating in anything that I get invited to. I'm usually participating.
That's good. Well, that's all great advice. And I mean, I think you're exactly right. You're going to get out what you put in. I've got a comment and then a segue. And I think I try to look at my business as less of an organization and more of an organism. Because an organism it eats, it sleeps, it breathes, it has to be fed, it has to be cultivated, and if I look at it as a constantly growing item, then it has to be nurtured, right? I mean, I can't set it on a shelf and go on vacation for 2 weeks because I come back and that plant's dead. Right. I mean, I've had to, whether I'm there watering it or I've hired somebody to water and feed and take care of things, and so that it can eventually grow on its own. And that's kind of the exit strategy, right? Is that you grow something that's got a deep enough root system, not to get too far off in the analogy, but that, you can walk away and it can become self-sustaining. So you
touched on a few things and I really want to drive it home to our listeners. And I'll phrase it this way. If you had to go back in time, so rewind to the onset of your career in real estate for both of you, what would be 2 things that you tell, I guess, your younger self to fast forward your business, to push through and maybe half the time or quarter the time it took you to get where you are right now?
Wow. That's a thinker, Jack. I think, I've said it before, if I had to do over again, I would have gotten into real estate a lot earlier. I would not have been, when you start your career, or when one starts their career, you get out of school, you got your shiny new diploma and you go off and you've got, I liken it to like a toolbox, right? You just earned your toolbox and doesn't have any tools in it yet. So your job is to fill that toolbox up with tools. And I think sometimes you get to the point where you're so focused on what you're doing and the what your choice was as far as a career goes, that I think a lot of people, they don't realize that this is not really my kind of thing, and this isn't where I'm being my best self until way, way, way late. And I wish I would have made the decision to move over to real estate a lot earlier than I did. That would definitely be one thing that I would tell my younger self is, hey, don't get bogged down in in a career that you don't really enjoy. I never had a passion for technology. I wasn't like those guys that were reading the trade rags every weekend and really passionate about it. I was out doing a job, basically. And what I really did like about it was the relationships that I was forming. And, that's what I'm good at, is the relationship piece of it. And that was it was really easy to parlay that into, what I'm doing now with real estate. But, I would just say to myself, hey, don't keep your head up. Keep looking for other opportunities. Don't shut anything out just because that's not what I do. This is what I do, whether I like it or not. That's just what I do.
That's fantastic advice.
Yeah. I don't know.
That's fantastic advice.
Yeah, I think for me, it would probably be maybe asking for, or I have a tendency to try to do things myself and to figure it out on my own. And I think maybe, and now it's not that way at all. I mean, we're super collaborative with other real estate agents. I love meeting with other agents, and I don't look at them as competition ever. It's always about cooperating with them and collaborating. And I think early on I had a small mindset, right? I was more of that lack mentality, and I think that I had to feel like I needed to hold everything close, and not share, and that's so silly, just I, again, probably asking for help or asking for others to, you know, mentor me or mentor others, I would have done that a lot sooner, I think. So if you're new to this, definitely align yourself with people that have been doing this a little bit longer. And everybody usually, I shouldn't say always, but most people want to pour into you and help you succeed.
Well, I've got a comment on both of those. One, Chris, you and I are like spirit animals, because when it comes to the getting started earlier, I tell my agents, again, jokingly, but not, you know, I get 60%, okay, 72% super excited and 28% super pissed, because my agents are starting so young. Yeah. Right. I mean, and I'm just like, oh my God, this is going to be so awesome to watch you blossom. And I got here at 40 and that sucks. I wish I'd gotten here sooner. You know, but then to your point, Shelley, is I think a lot of that early on, and we're stuck in a scarcity mindset, you know, and so we don't want to collaborate. And there's only so many deals and there's only so many buyers and listings. And then we sit back, and the further you get into this industry or any industry, you kind of go, there's like 4 million people in Houston.
How detrimental is that scarcity mindset?
The scarcity mindset is an absolute game ender.
It's a killer. Yeah.
No, I mean, it will end you. Once you get past that and you see and you start to recognize the abundance that is available, you can't go shopping for what you don't see. Right. And so when we change that mindset, I think it leads to huge opportunities. Well, hey, I know you guys are crazy busy. It's been an absolute fantastic interview, but I want to finish up here like we always love to do. And if you wouldn't mind, if you have something, again, don't share anybody's name or anything inappropriate, but do you have just a story that sticks out, a transaction or a sale or a client experience or something that was just kind of funny now, maybe wasn't funny then?
That's perfect. Yeah, Chris has a good one.
Well,
I love the fact that you just looked at him and you're like, you know which one it is.
Oh, I know. Yeah, she knows, and I do too. When the first couple of years after I became a realtor, I had for whatever reason, I had some very how do I put it? Some people that were up there in age, right? Older couples that were, you know, moving out of they're downsizing out of their their home, and that they raised their kids in, and so now they're empty nesters. They got grandbabies, and so they don't need that big house anymore. So they're downsizing. This happened twice in a very short period of time with me, and unfortunately, I had 2 of my clients pass away before the transaction was complete. Like when we were after we were under contract, but before we closed, and I was talking to a friend about that who's been in the industry for a long time, and he said, "Wow," he goes, "That's happened to you twice in the span of like 8 months. That's never happened to me in the whole time that I've been a realtor." He goes, "You know what we're going to start calling you?" I said, "What's that?" You're going to be the Grim Realtor from now on.
I said he was killing them with his service.
Yes.
There you go. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that could
funny
get
now, not funny then.
Not funny then at all.
No,
I've been to a
not
couple
at all.
of funerals.
Yeah.
I understand.
No,
well, hey, you guys.
You got a funny story. Yeah, you got something.
Do I?
You got all kinds of stories.
Nothing's coming to mind at this very moment. I can think of the transactions that I would never want to go through again. Those transactions, I got plenty of those stories. But yeah, just something funny. It's not coming to mind. Help me out if you're thinking of one.
Frustrating. You got some frustrating.
Frustrating. But that's, again, I mean, you know.
That's par for course, right?
Absolutely.
That's right.
That's a whole other podcast.
Yeah.
Well, hey,
that for next time.
You guys have been absolutely fantastic. I think there's at least a dozen really good nuggets. I mean, whether it's married couples working together, people new in the industry, people that aren't new in the industry but need to get outside their circle, expand their sphere of influence, get new mentors, all of that stuff there's a ton of takeaways in here. We really appreciate y'all's time. So if somebody wanted to reach out to y'all other than going to countoncooleyhtx.com, how can they find you guys if somebody wanted to reach out?
Sure.
Any of our social media pages, our phone number, 832-419-6039. That's mine.
Or 713-377-8147. That's me. We're not hard to find. So
We're available.
yeah, absolutely.
I always love this part because when you're talking to an agent, they're like, here's my phone number. Nobody else wants to give out their number. Agents are like, that's like candy. I just give that all day.
Yeah. Oh, and hey, by the way, we're never too busy for your referrals.
There you go.
All right.
That's exactly right. Awesome. Well, hey, y'all have a fantastic day. Thank you so much for being here. Everybody, don't forget, our podcast, share it with friends, family, and complete strangers. We want you to be here on the journey to your future in entrepreneurship, and getting these pieces of information, not reinventing the wheel, taking the advice from complete strangers or people that you should probably get to know. Make sure you come back and listen often, subscribe, and we'll talk to you next week.
Okay, thank y'all very much.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.